quorum. We have our Vice Chair, Director Morse. We have Director Alviti. We have Director Waldron. I do believe that Director Cruz will be joining us as well. The first item of business is public comment. I do believe we have everyone unmuted. Is there anyone here on our Zoom that would like to offer some public commentary? Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes. If you
Okay.
can identify yourself, please.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. I'm Stephen Cuomo, Mr. Chairman and board and members of the board. I'm a member of the negotiation committee of the.
Mr. Cuomo, if I just want to interrupt you very briefly, I believe you're going to speak on, if you're going to speak on the contract negotiation, I think it would be appropriate. Why don't you'll speak on it when we bring that up item on the agenda, which will be item 7 on our agenda, and I'll make you aware of that. Is that okay with you?
Well, I'm not working today, and I have another engagement. I was told I would just do a few moments on the public speaking.
Go ahead. That's not the way go ahead. Go for it.
All right. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So members of the board, as a member of the negotiation committee of the United Allied and Service Workers Union here at RIPTA, and on behalf of all its members, I'm here today to respectfully request that this board support and ratify the collective bargaining agreement, which is on today's agenda for your consideration. It is with the spirit of collegiality, given these uncertain times, that we negotiated and arrived at a 3-year contract term, which ultimately provides for some critical and necessary stability, so essential for both management and employees. And therefore, we ask again for your support. Finally, the union would like to recognize with gratitude the support given by all East Bay elected officials at both the state and local levels, recognizing the good work done by all the union and non-union employees, especially Frank Flowers, here at RIPTA. And I believe the resolutions presented by these various cities and towns are on the agenda to this effect for your consideration and review. And their support is greatly appreciated. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cuomo. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to be heard? The next item on our agenda, the first item for action, is approval of our most recent meeting, which was held on August 5th, 2020. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move.
There's a motion by Director Morse, seconded by Director Waldron. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The next item is the legal bill of Panoni Lopes, Devereaux, and O'Gara. This is for the month of July. The dollar figure is $19,118.36. Do we have a motion to approve?
Move.
There's a motion by Director Waldron, seconded by Director Morse. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is our monthly ratification. The dollar figure is $462,193.64. Let's have a motion and then we'll have a little explanation. Do we have a motion to ratify?
I'll move.
There's a motion and a second. The motion was made by Director Morse, seconded by Director Waldron. Mr. Levesque, do you want to just run down some of this work, please?
Certainly. The majority of the amount in this ratification is for the authority's 3 largest projects we have currently ongoing. We have the 19-3 contract, the Newport Pell Bridge deck replacement project, contract 19-4, which is water work associated with the Jamestown Verrazano Bridge and the Newport Pell Bridge, and also 19-1, which is the electrical and communication upgrades for the Newport Pell Bridge and Mount Hope Bridge.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Levesque?
Pretty straightforward.
All those in favor of the motion to ratify, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item is something that was requested at our last meeting. This is by Director Waldron. Requested that the following resolutions be included on our agenda and offered for discussion. They're resolutions from the City of Newport, the towns of Portsmouth, Jamestown, and Middletown. And they, I'm sure you've all read through them. They reference various opposition or concern about any consolidation of the Turnpike and Bridge Authority with the Department of Transportation. Do we have a motion to receive?
I'll move.
There's a motion and a second to receive the documents. Any discussion?
Director Alvidi, could you please give some direction as to what the status of this whole thing is? Since we've
Yes.
got so much opposition, it'd be nice if the board knew exactly where we stand.
Yes, I'd be happy to. The bill and the legislation for the merger of the two agencies has been submitted. It was submitted some time ago, early in last year's budget process. Of course, as you all know, the legislature has not convened to ratify a new budget, nor have they convened on any other issues, this being one of them. So the bill sits. The legislature, the last word that I have is that the legislature will convene on the budget after the November election.
Makes sense.
And the governor and DOT is certainly willing, and able, and wanting to go forward with the legislation. If there are restrictions on the amount of business that the legislature can do during this modified session, it certainly still is our intent to follow up in January with the new legislative session with this. So it is in the hopper. A lot depends, of course, on the process going forward with the legislature itself, but it has been accepted and introduced into the legislature.
Okay.
With
Thank you.
regard to the resolutions, we have resolutions all the time on DOT projects that we do across the state, some of which are fact-based and some of which are political-based. I believe that once we did a reading of them, we certainly take them all seriously at DOT. Once we did a reading of the resolutions, they seem to have a common theme. And I'll use Newport's as an example. There are several whereases, most of which are very subjective, some of which have data associated with them. The subjective ones, what could you say? I mean, they're subjective comments. They're people's opinions. The ones that contain data are maybe accurate, but the way that the data is presented and the mannerism in which it was intended to sway the opinion is certainly misleading. And I'll go down a few just to give you a sense of what we're thinking at DOT. In the Newport resolution, if you take a look at that, the first whereas is that Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority was created in 1954, and it goes on to explain what it was meant to do. Mount Hope Bridge, the Claiborne, the construction of the Claiborne Pell Bridge. What's left out of this whereas is a very important aspect of that legislation, and that is that the authority actually dissolves upon full payment of the debt related to those bridges. And when it dissolves, it is automatically reassumed. Those bridges and the responsibility for them are reassumed by DOT. So it's not a matter of whether or not Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge is merged with DOT. It's a matter of when it happens.
Well, can I make a comment?
Director Morse.
Since we are always, okay, in a maintenance mode on these bridges, and those maintenance modes require us to continue, okay, to issue bonds and so on. I don't see any foreseeable future when that would just automatically happen in the near future, even with the bond offerings we have now, because I just assume we'll just have more bond offerings to keep these bridges in the condition that we want them to be in.
Well, therein lies the problem.
Yeah, it's a continuous flow.
If you project ahead and you look at the management of bond issuances by the Turnpike and Bridge, and you project ahead, you can see that the currently authority has bonded really almost to their limit. I think the debt ratio as of the last issuance was 3.1.
Yeah.
Which is relatively high, right?
Right.
Right. And that's not good. That's not healthy for an agency. And the payment of that debt is going over the next several years, take more and more of the revenue that is used, that should be used for the construction and maintenance of these bridges. It's going to take it and it has to be dedicated to the repayment of the debt, which means one of two things are going to happen. Therein lies the next comment made by the Newport, whereas RIPA currently collects and uses dedicated revenue to operate and maintain the Newport Pell Bridge. Well, the fact of the matter is, if you look at the financials, that are part of your packet today, you will see that that is not entirely accurate, or at least it's misleading. It would lead one to believe that the tolls that are collected are sufficient to operate the agency. And in fact, 42% of the revenue, almost half of the revenue that keeps the authority afloat is derived from DOT and the gas tax.
That's true.
That only 50%, 53%, 4% is actually derived from the tolls that are collected. So the misconception, I think, that is among some of these cities and towns and politicians that wrote these resolutions is that they think somehow that the authority is well funded through its own resources of tolling and self-sufficient in that. And the fact of the matter is not. Almost half of their operations are subsidized by Rhode Island DOT. And without that subsidy, the authority would go bankrupt. So therein lies another misconception, I think, in the public that is little known.
Director, if I could ask you this question, what's the actual piece of legislation that was introduced? Do you know what the bill number is?
I don't off the top of my head, but I'm sure that Director Silvera has a copy of it and can provide it to you.
What I think what I would suggest is that, you know, the board of directors of this authority, it's not up to us. We are the policymakers appointed by the governor related to the operation of the Turnpike and Bridge Authority.
Yep.
What I see the sentiment from the different communities that are probably most impacted by it. I think there are a lot of questions and everything else. And again, we're not going to answer that today. I think that.
Well, I'd like an opportunity here since the door is open.
Sure. Well, what I was going to say, Director, is that perhaps in a legislative hearing when the bill would be fully vetted and first introduced and then in the traditional committee hearing process in the legislature, I think that would be the more proper forum for cities and towns to weigh in. They've made the authority aware of their concerns, And I think a lot of it is, I just did a quick search. I don't actually see the piece of legislation. I certainly know there's been no hearing on it. I don't know, do you know, do you remember who the prime sponsor was of the legislation?
I don't. We'll get that information to you.
So, I mean, we don't have any action on our agenda in terms of opposition or support for a merger, and I don't know that that would necessarily be appropriate for this board to take a position on a piece of legislation that obviously is beyond our own control. So,
Right. I certainly agree with you on that. On the subject of it being on our agenda as a matter of discussion, I'd like to continue my discussion of it.
sure, that's fine. Take all the time you'd like.
Thank you. And I think at a time that is appropriate, as we near that legislative session where there will be hearings. Prior to that, we would certainly welcome the opportunity to have DOT and governor's staff brief the board on the logic, the data, the finances, and the management outlook that is coupled with this initiative. I think all of those aspects are very important. The next whereas goes to that issue. It says, whereas the Department of Transportation owns and maintains all the state secondary bridges and has not done the same to maintain the safety of the bridges under its purview. Well, again, in the statistics that are related to that are set forth in this resolution are again misleading. At a reading, they would indicate that DOT is doing nothing about the problem that is decades old with our bridges in the state. But the problem goes beyond the actual sufficiency of the bridges. And 5 years ago now, the legislature ratified roadworks. And roadworks changed the basis of this part of this resolution, this particular whereas. That, in fact, I think it's evident to everybody on the board that there have been some major changes at DOT, not only in the way that our bridges are now beginning to show improvement and be maintained. We have over 200 bridges right now that are under construction throughout the state. This would have never happened if not for the roadworks legislation, but it also would not have happened if many of the elements of the roadworks legislation that are not entirely part of the public discussion, but were very important parts of the legislation. The transparency issues, the need for us to report monthly on the on-time and on budget aspects of every project that we're doing, over 200 projects. The need for us to have a financial house in order and have a 10-year plan that is fiscally fully funded, so that the plan is real and executable, as we have during the last 6 years. I'm sure the visible signs of the construction is proof that that plan is working. But it also goes to the management and the financial controls that were put in place at DOT to provide a stable, predictable, and sustainable revenue stream into the department. And it lies in the new efforts that we have made during the last 4 years, where over $400 million in additional competitive grants were awarded to our DOT from the federal government, over and above our base funding, federal funding from the federal government. Certainly create a new DOT that is very different than the one that's described in this particular whereas. And the governor sees the improvements not only in the infrastructure, but also in the management and controls and future of DOT, that she would like to apply those same metrics and those same policies and that same kind of management. And there would be a real benefit to that. That, in fact, instead of looking forward, quite the inverse of what is alleged in some of the other parts of this resolution, where they allege that DOT, the purpose of the merger would be for DOT to take funding from Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge. Well, quite the opposite is true. We are already funding 42% of the agency's budget. And in the future, one of two things is going to happen. Either Rhode Island DOT is going to have to fund more of it because of the debt balloon that's coming, that was created at the agency. But either we're going to have to increase our subsidies to the agency in order for it to stay solvent, or if that doesn't happen, there is going to have to be an increase in the tolls that are assessed to the people that use the bridge in order to...
Director Alviti, can I just interrupt for a moment, okay? Because I think one of the things that has hit me that you basically stated was the fact that at this particular time, you are actually, the DOT is actually repairing and trying to improve over 200 bridges in the smallest state in the union, okay? And I think the fact that the federal government has come to the aid of Rhode Island because of our poor roadways is the history of the DOT. And I think that's the battle that you're having to face, that I don't think people have confidence that you do have an ongoing plan to prevent that from happening in the future.
Yeah, here's the thing about that aid, okay? That aid could have very well come to Rhode Island for decades had the department conducted itself in a manner that attracted the awards. They didn't.
That's true.
And
We're in this situation.
In the 4 years previous to this administration that's currently at DOT, they were able to apply for and successfully get about $20 million of federal funding. During the last 4 years, we have applied for and received over $400 million worth of additional federal funding. And that didn't come to us because we simply applied for it or that the federal government was doing a bailout. It came because we have demonstrated our ability not only to do that amount of construction, but to immediately and efficiently put that money to work in creating jobs and renovating our infrastructure. If during the last 4 years, we didn't change and we did not conduct ourselves in a manner that attracted those additional funds, we would not have gotten that $400 million. The federal government did not come and bail us out. They did not come because we just had a need, but they came in part because certainly our congressional delegation put their shoulder into getting us the funding. But that shoulder and the shoulder of the federal government came after we demonstrated at DOT that we had the ability and the pipeline created and a proper plan and proper projects that address the needs of each one of the grant opportunities that were specifically targeted by a new group in DOT to go and get those grants. And that is an important aspect too of the merger, because right now there have been no federal grant opportunities that have been made available to Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge. And with our grant success that we could bring to the agency, we can see that in the future, a good amount of federal funding could be made available and put into the revenue pipeline that in the future could avert the toll increases that are looming ahead if the agencies stays operating in the current mode. So grants don't just happen, Director. They happen when the grantee shows the ability to be able to effectively use that funding and has a demonstrated success in doing so. And that's the way DOT got the money.
Mr. Chair,
Thank you. I appreciate the director, and obviously we all respect and we think you've done a wonderful job. Having been on this board a while, you'll recall history before you came to power at DOT, that when we used the word subsidize, it was the General Assembly, who's the policymaking body for the state of Rhode Island, that placed the Jamestown Bridge and the Secana River Bridge under the Turnpike and Bridge Authority. So as you well know, the Newport Bridge has had carried both the Mount Hope and Newport Bridge for a long time. So when you use the word subsidize, I know, obviously you know that the gas tax money came over to the Turnpike and Bridge Authority to also assist with the support of the Secana Bridge as well as the Jamestown Bridge, which prior to your tenure were not well maintained by the DOT, to speak to what Director Morse is talking about. So when we talk about the gas tax, I believe that it's not just the toll users of the Newport Bridge that are carrying Secana, Jamestown, and Mount Hope. I believe that the General Assembly, the policymaking body, saw fit to utilize that gas tax to support those, enormous structures as well.
No, Mr. Chairman, I'm sure you, having sat on the board for as long as you do, have seeing the financials, okay? You pretty much know, and if you don't, you should, that the money that is being provided from the gas tax revenue that would normally go to DOT for transportation purposes is much, much more than the actual expenditures on two bridges that it would supposedly came to the authority on.
So supposedly they did, Director. I was here. They were under DOT's care, and they're here now. We can go through a discussion of the Turnpike and Bridge Authority if you'd like, Director. But I think we've heard these resolutions.
The matter is, if you're going to discuss that particular item, funding that's coming, that a portion of that money certainly is being used for the maintenance of the two bridges that you got at the same time that money was legislated to you. But the actual amount is much more than what is needed to maintain those two bridges, and is being used as part of the general revenue to support the other bridges. So the facts are the facts. And when we provide our briefing to you, we will have a breakdown of that so that you can see clearly that what's coming to the agency is accurately described as a subsidy rather than a compensation for two bridges. It's much more than compensation for two bridges. It goes to the general revenue stream, a good portion of it, and is used for other purposes that involve other bridges in the agency's responsibilities.
I think it speaks to the idea that we need to have legislative hearings and let the actual policymakers, the elected officials, let them make the decision, and then.
No, I agree. I agree. I just needed, since this was put on the agenda and the record is being affected by various political resolutions from certain people, I needed to go on the record with the agency to clear up some of the misconceptions I think that these resolutions create.
I think that's fair. And just when you say certain people, I live in the East Bay. The city of Newport, the town of Portsmouth, the town of Jamestown, the town of Middletown. Those aren't just politicians. Those are people that use the bridge every day, use the bridges every day. And any other discussion at all on this matter?
Mr. Chair, if I could just briefly address a couple of things that Director Alviti said. I do not have a copy of any bill that's been submitted to the General Assembly. As soon as one is identified, I assure the other members of the Board of Directors that I will circulate it immediately. But I have checked. I don't have a copy. The only copy I saw was a very, very early draft that I'm certain has probably seen some revisions since that very early draft. So I will circulate that among the board as soon as I see it. The other thing, Director Alviti, to your point regarding federal funding, I just want to make the point that we've been very aggressive in speaking to the federal delegation. They've been very supportive of providing help for us if we need it. We think we're pretty fiscally healthy as it is. We're running a lean and mean budget for the coming fiscal year. But I have been in touch with the entire federal delegation, and they've been very supportive of funding that could come to us. Federal funding does not come without strings attached. And they would be strings attached to a 91-year-old bridge and a 51-year-old bridge and several other bridges. So, and then 10 minor bridges and roadways. So all of that is very much on our radar screen. And I just wanted to mention that. And the last point is the gas tax money comes directly from legislation that was passed that directly gives us, a small portion of the gas tax that's collected. And I just wanted that to be clear as well.
Any other discussion? Thank you for that. We've received these resolutions. The next item of business is a proposed collective bargaining agreement for 2020 through 2023. I'll have our executive director, let's have a motion to approve, and then the executive director will introduce it. Do we have a motion to approve? There's a motion by Director Morse, a second by Director Waldron. Ms. Karen Silvera?
Yes. So we have been sitting down with the union, as we always do when the contract comes up for renewal. Concerns the union, and we have all acknowledged that these are extraordinary times that call for extraordinary measures, including measures in collective bargaining. We were candid with the union about our financial situation. When we were conducting these negotiations, our numbers, our traffic and revenues were increasing, but none of us has a crystal ball. And the best we could do, the closest thing to a crystal ball, is the Stantec report, which helps us to try and understand or try and predict where we're headed in terms of traffic and revenue. The union worked with us. They basically agreed to tie any raise, and I don't know that they'll get any raise at all, but to tie any increase in their wages to the predictions in the Stantec report and to tie them to the middle number. It looks like we're headed for that number. And in the event that we head for that number and hit that number at the end of December, they basically would get 1% as an increase. It's set forth as 1% in the document, but it would really only be 0.5% because it's only half the year. The union's response was, well, it's not fair to tie it just to the end of December. Could we, what if it comes in January? So we did include some leeway, but if by the end of February we are not on track to hit that middle of the road number that Stantec gave us of 17 million plus, then there will be no increase at all. The other 2 years of the contract, we agreed we would have a reopener for wages. And of course, there's always got to be something to bargain against wages. And the other crystal ball we need is one on healthcare. I'm sure everyone read in the paper that there are increases in group health that are coming to most workplaces. So we tied any reopener as a reopener limited to wages and premium sharing on the health plan. The other things were operational things. management has always wanted to retain the right to assign our maintenance employees as we see fit. Maintenance has several times at the table, the union, I should say, the union has made proposals that would allow some of the employees to choose whether they work today on the Mount Hope or on the Newport or on the Jamestown or the Secundit or one of the other small bridges. We have resisted that, and the language makes clear that we retain the management right to assign employees as we see fit. And those are basically the changes. The last change had to do really, while it looks complicated, it's some minor changes looking ahead, probably beyond the term of this contract, looking ahead to a time when we have full automation of our toll operations, and what would happen in terms of employees being either transitioned into other positions that may be available or leaving the employment of the Turnpike and Bridge Authority. So that's what's been negotiated, and the union has ratified this proposal. No one ever is happy to.
Any questions for the executive director?
Yeah, I have one quick question.
Director Morse.
Laurie, I know that you have a legal background and so on, but has our legal counsel taken a look at this contract? I saw a lot of whereases and wherefores, and I just wanted to make sure that from a legal point of view, the I's have been dotted and the T's have been crossed. I'm not sure if that's been done.
I didn't, Director Morse, I didn't send it to outside counsel only because I have been doing labor and employment law, and I've specifically been doing labor and employment law here, and I still am, by the way, and that's in my contract. So I didn't send it out for review to our counsel. I think I may have had discussions along the way just about where this was looking, but I've drafted every collective bargaining agreement going back in time farther than going back in time to Bill Laurie, before Ken Bianchi, before Buddy Croft. So I'm very familiar with this contract. So I didn't send it out.
I do appreciate that, but now you're in a different position as the ED, and I kind of would like to see someone else just scrutinize it, because I'm not astute on collective bargaining, just for I guess clarification and to give us more assurance that everything is fine, not to at all impede on, I'm sure, your ability to do these things. I just think it's a good idea.
Let's continue this to our next meeting, and we will have it forwarded over to our legal counsel, have it reviewed, and get it back on the agenda for our October meeting. Does that make sense?
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Director Alviti.
Yes, in addition to having our legal advisors take a look at this, and I certainly agree with that. I think it would be prudent to have the Department of Administration of the state take a look at this contract also. There are many aspects of the COVID-related budgeting process that are uncertain because of the budgeting process. And I think anything that affects any of the agencies, I think a memo went out earlier this month from the director of the Department of Administration asking that any employee-based compensation be reviewed by them, or changes to employee-based compensation be reviewed by them. And also, I'd like to have the governor's staff and DOT take a look at it from the standpoint of what effect this would have if the merger goes forward. There would be certainly impacts, not the least of which would be automation. The impact that my reading of the clauses in this would have would impact agencies or DOT in the future ability and methodology used in automation of the facilities. And everybody is moving, all tolling agencies moving more toward automation. So I agree with Director Morse that we should hold off on this.
Well, I would, with all due respect, I do agree with Director Morse that we should have another attorney look at it. But the fact of the matter is, I've not seen even a piece of legislation in the legislature that would merge our agencies. And as we stand today, we are a standalone quasi-public agency. And I appreciate your input as a member of our board of directors ex officio, but DOT is not negotiating this contract. And
Right.
the Department of Administration is not negotiating this contract. So I do think that it should be resolved within the current paradigm, which is our agency as a standalone quasi-public agency. Until such time as you're the boss here, Director, I think we need to manage things as we are statutorily obligated to do.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't implying any of that. I was simply saying, as a matter of cooperation between the agencies, that we all have an ability to look at it before any action is taken by the current administration.
And you, Director, are a member of this board, and you can do that as much as you'd like, with all due respect. But this is not a DOT agency. It might be 6 months from now, but as of now, I think we operate as a standalone agency that we've done pretty well for the past 50 years. And we kick it to our legal counsel, and we put it back on our agenda in October. With all due respect to you, I think you've done a great job, as you were talking about earlier, but we need to do what we need to do until such time as things change. So I will make a motion to table this to have further review by legal counsel of RIPA and hopefully get it back on our agenda for October. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item relates to a discretionary contribution to our employees' 401k plan. The dollar figure is $136,133.92. We'll have a motion and then we'll have some discussion. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move.
There's a motion and a second. The motion was made by Director Cruz, seconded by Director Waldron. Mrs. Karen Silveri, do you want to give this a rundown, please?
Sure. This actually, I'm going to refer to this as belt and suspenders, because this figure actually, and this item was included in the budget that the board has already approved for fiscal year 2021. We took it off the agenda a few months ago only because we were checking the actual cost of the item. I have now made certain that I've checked the cost of that item. It is correct. It includes about $2,000 that needs to be squared up, that we still owe into the profit sharing plan for fiscal year 2020. So it's 134,000 plus 2,000 basically. It's always been a benefit that have been offered to the employees here. It's paid out, it's allocated to each of the eligible participants in their bi-weekly paychecks. I would ask that it be approved at this point.
Any questions or discussion?
One question, please.
Director Alviti.
Is this an increase, a decrease, or the same as we've contributed in the past?
The same, Director.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The next item relates to our DMV lookup system. The contract would go to LES Systems, LES LLC. The dollar figure is $25,000. If we could have a motion, we'll have some explanation from Ms. O'Connor.
So moved.
There's a motion from Director Cruz, seconded by Director Morse. Ms. O'Connor, if you can give us a rundown on this, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Duncan LES Systems provides our lookup systems for our violation processing system. It is for the US and Canada. It doesn't include Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. We have direct hookups with those individual states' DMVs. The contract is for 3 years, and there is an option to extend for 2 additional one-year terms. We went out for RFP. LES was the only bidder. They are the current provider for these services. There is no price increase from the current contract we have with them, In fact, they gave us a price reduction previously by 2 cents per lookup. So we have been very happy with LES. We will not have to go out and create what they call a new interface document between our back office provider and a lookup service. We can use our existing, our existing one. And I hope that the board will approve.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The next item relates to a contract to Gannett and Fleming. The not to exceed figure is $500,000. Let's have a motion, and then Ms. O'Connor gives a description.
So moved.
Motion from Director Cruz, seconded by Director Waldron. Ms. O'Connor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The authority would like to engage Gannett Fleming to assist in the writing of the RFP, the procurement for our new back office solution for our electronic toll collection system. Our current back office expires in June of 2022. Under contract 19-6, we went out and solicited quotes from 3 companies. We did an analysis, gap analysis on the technical merits. We did an evaluation on the cost. We did it on the response. And after the analysis, the overall score from all 3 people who reviewed, Gannett Fleming was the overall choice in both value and their actual cost to the authority. So this is a big project for the tolling and operations side. We don't do this that often. We obviously will need help developing the RFP, but it also includes, which is very important, the testing and the acceptance of whoever our next back office provider will be. And Gannett Fleming has tremendous experience in the all electronic tolling. As we've all been discussing, they have tremendous experience with the IAG, and we're going to have to move forward to some components on that. And they were integral in the conversion of our sister state, Massachusetts, when they converted to all electronic tolling. So I ask that the board approve choosing Gannett Fleming as the toll consultant to help the authority move in this direction.
Any questions or discussion for Ms. O'Connor?
I do.
Director Alviti.
While, Mr. Chairman, you could hold that DOT does not have a stake in the operations of RITPA.
Not what I said, Director. Not what I said.
In this case, at least, we certainly do. You know that the back office of RITPA has done an absolutely marvelous job with our startup of our automated tolling system. You guys have really been the backbone of our collections and our administration of our new tolling system. And while we certainly admire and support your efforts in doing that, I think it would be prudent, and it certainly would be helpful if our DOT tolling group were brought in as part of the kind of review of how this goes forward. Just ask that cooperation. Yep.
So Director Alviti, we absolutely took into consideration the fact that we provide the back office services to RIDOT. It was part of the scope that would be a consideration. I would refer to it as an and/or, because it's always been that RIDOT does not necessarily have to continue with RITBA being the back office provider, but that that it would be part of it. And obviously, as that component of the RFP, we've all systems, and we would do that going forward. So if there was, because they're two different, even when the authority goes all electronic, it still will be two different tolling systems, two different business rules. So it always will be what I refer to as a separate module. So we took that into consideration, and obviously would welcome RIDOT's input, as we've always worked integral with the agency. And we did when we developed the back office for RIDOT, and we will continue in this next phase too.
Great, thank you very much.
No
Thank you.
problem.
That's all I have for questions.
Any other questions or discussion? All those, I think we're a little delayed here. Have we voted on this motion?
No.
I'm having an issue with my, much to everybody's happiness, I'm having an issue with my connection here.
Yeah.
Can everyone hear me? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The next item is a bid award to Parsons. This relates to on-call professional engineering services related to our ATMS system. We're going to have Ms. O'Connor give another description on this. The approval would be for $119,989, and that would go to Parsons. Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's a motion by Director Cruz, seconded by Director Waldron. Ms. O'Connor, you're spending a lot of money today. Keep on talking.
Unusual for me. So this is a service and maintenance contract with Parsons, who that is who we have our ATMS system. 20,000 of this is strictly for the licenses associated with it. The other part is for the service and maintenance. And it is a not to exceed, and it's a billable. So there obviously will be oversight, no unnecessary meetings, no unnecessary add-ons. This is for the service and maintenance for an existing ATMS system that we have from Parsons.
Question?
Director Morse.
How much did we actually pay on this in 2019? Do you have any idea?
For the service and maintenance on the, it was scheduled to be 142. When I looked prior to this board meeting, I think it was at 139. Now that part of that 139, we were still in the development phase for the first half of the year. It was brand new, so there were a lot more meetings. There was a lot more tweaks, I guess you would call it, in the system itself. As this becomes a mature system, there should be less, and we should see the spending decrease.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of the contract award to Parsons, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. The next item is a presentation from our auditor, Markham. I believe we have someone, Ms. Olvery, who's going to give us a pretty expedited presentation on our financials. She's unmuted.
There she goes. Hello.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Did you want me to share the slideshow, or did you want to just go through the PDF?
I think it would be helpful for the board and the public to see the slideshow.
Okay. Do I have access to share it? Let me try.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
I'm told you do.
There you go.
There we go.
All right. Can everybody see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we've finished work at the authority doing the 2020 financial statements. We worked mainly with Tony. Maggie was helping as she exited. And then also Lori was filling in. So they made it a lot smoother. Every year it gets a little bit better. So we'll go through the authority's 2020 results. Again, we have the statements internally reviewed by me, partner. I just got the comments back from QC, so it is going off to Auditor General today. So if you have any questions at any time, just let me know. So in your actual PDF of the actual draft, pages 4 to 6 is the actual auditor's report. So again, you have an unmodified opinion, which is a clean opinion. That's a good thing. You also have another report in the back, which is your governmental auditing report. That's pages 44 and 45. So again, when we do the audit, we have to look at the internal control structure. So again, if there were any deficiencies that we noted, we would report those to you. Based on our testing, we've noted no instances of non-compliance. So we would definitely have to report those if we found those during our testing. So overall in 2020, the net position increased by 2.3 million. So one thing to take into account is when you look at the draft, make sure you read through the MD&A. It gives you very detailed explanations of the fluctuations that happen from year to year. Last year, there was more of a significant increase. Again, COVID had an impact this year. The toll revenue is down. You'll see as we go through the slides, your cash flow increased, but again, that was a lot because of bonding that happened as well. That net position breakdown this year is invested in capital assets is about 56.4 million. Your restricted for debt covenants is 81.4 million. And then your unrestricted has flipped from last year. It is now negative 752,000. So again, if you look at the MD&A, it gives you a detailed explanation of the things that happen throughout the year that caused that flip. A lot of it is the bonding costs that happen, the COVID toll revenue being down. Again, expenses didn't come down as much as revenue, so some of the categories dropped off, but again, salaries increased. So there were some things that definitely had to increase overall. So overall in the balance sheet, so your statement of financial position, overall your total assets are up. Again, that's the purchase of investments is the biggest category and change there. Your liabilities overall, again, carrying more debt. There was the issuance that happened this year. And overall that change in net position of 2.3 million. In the results of the operation, so your income statement. So again, you're showing a difference from last year. Last year you had about 39 million. This year it's about 34 million. So it's a drop off of about 5.1. Your operating expenses only dropped off about 1 million. So overall operating income is down about $4 million. Again, your non-operating expenses, a lot of the expenses in that category relate to the bonding. So those are the changes there. The change in net position, again, last year you had 8.9 million, which was pretty significant. And then this year it was about 2.3. So again, as we were talking, the cash flows, so from operations, stayed pretty strong. You had an increase from operations, from cash. Again, the capital and financing increase is related to the bonding. So a significant amount of proceeds came in. And what was used was for the purchases of investments. So that was a significant change there. So overall, that's just a snapshot of the financials. There is more detail in the PDF. And if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to me. Tony has my contact information. I'm sure you guys do from the years we've been working with you. I just want to go over just the communication with the board that we have to from a required standpoint. So during the audit, significant audit findings, if we had any, we would have to report those to you. As of today, I can report there were none noted. Management is great to work with. It's actually a very smooth audit. They make it a lot easier than some of the things I've ever done. Management estimates. So again, just note that there are estimates built into your financials. Electric toll liability, that's an estimate. The allowance for doubtful accounts. Again, your settlement liabilities. And again, your useful life of fixed assets. So those are some estimates just to be aware of that they are built into the numbers in the financials. Some of the financial statement disclosures to pay attention, there is a significant note on commitments and contingencies disclosures. Again, just note that there will be a new note in there that you probably see relating to COVID. That's a note that you'll see in a lot of financials this year, just because of the uncertainty that's going on. We encountered no difficulties in the audit. There were no past adjustments. So if there were any adjustments that we discussed with management that we decided to be passed on, we would have to present those to you. Any adjustments that we discussed with management have been recorded in the financial statements that you have. Again, when we issue, we'll get a signed rep letter from management. To our knowledge, there is no other consultation with any other accountants regarding the treatment of accounting. No other audit findings or issues. Again, the other matters on the required supplementary information, there's no opinion. And then the supplementary information in the back is opinion in relation to the whole financial statement. And that would be all the state schedules. And just to be aware, I'm sure some of you are aware, because of COVID, it can give you they laxed the standard implementation, so they delayed the implementation of leases. All the new standards that were coming down the pike have delayed about a year out, so it gives everybody a little bit more time to get on board and get things together. And that is all I have. If there's any questions.
That was pretty good.
Any questions from the board?
Just one, will we get an actual hard copy sent? I would appreciate getting one when it's, because all of it says draft at this point.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank you.
Once it's issued, you'll get all your hard copies.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So our action would be to approve the draft audited financial statements. We have a motion and a second. Actually, do we have a motion and a second?
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, I
yes.
don't think we did.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Executive Director Silveria, I know you have an introduction to make and then a report. You need to unmute yourself.
Here I am.
There you
I'm
are.
very pleased to introduce Eric Seabury, who is our new Director of Engineering. Eric comes to us very highly recommended and regarded. He has most recently been Assistant Vice President of Engineering at the Rhode Island Airport Corporation. Before that, Manager of Engineering there, and going back to 99 through 2007, he was Project Manager of Bridge Engineering at RIDOT. So the panel that interviewed the candidates felt very strongly that we're thrilled to have Eric here. We believe he's going to bring energy and he's going to bring new perspective. He already has been helpful to me, even reaching out even before he was officially on board. So I'm thrilled to introduce Eric Seabury. And I've told him he doesn't have to wear a tie every single day. So.
Looks good. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Anything else, Ms. Silvera?
Yes, just I would just refer the directors to the last page of the board packet, which is our monthly status report. We had promised you that we would monitor this year's budget. We're doing that. The numbers are there. The traffic numbers are there. The revenue there. We continue to report 75 sometimes north of 75%. Sometimes significantly north of 75% of our traffic pre-COVID, which is great. We did not have, there are many other tolling agencies that cannot report the kinds of numbers we have reported in the recovery.
Any questions for the Executive Director? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Director Cruz adjourns, makes a motion to adjourn. Director Waldron seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned at 9:34. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.